Yay, here we are. It's working. Okay, I'm waiting for people to hop on. We are about to do our live virtual class for these awesome spring themed cookies. I believe the first day of spring was last week or the week before. So, in honor of that, I decided to do some flowers, butterflies, all that good stuff, some of my favorite things. So, our class is starting in about 5 minutes officially. I'm going to give people some time to hop on. I know that I've got some people just scrolling through Facebook who would like to stay and watch, which is awesome. I always welcome people, even if you haven't purchased a kit. But I'm also doing this class for people who have purchased their kits and are following along with me for these 4 cookies with everything having been shipped to them. If you're about to watch it on YouTube, if this is a pre-recorded class, it's great to have you. You can pause as needed. You can fast forward a little bit if you need to, but we will officially start in 5 minutes. So feel free to comment and leave your name. Well, I'll see your name, but leave any questions or comments that you might have, and I will see them as we go. That is if you're taking the live class. So I will comment to myself and just let y'all know. Feel free to say hi, what y'all up to, how's everybody doing, and we'll start shortly. Hopefully everybody is not having issues getting on with the class. I'm going to say something different. Please comment with one thing you are grateful for today. All right. Again, I'm just waiting. I'm not talking right now really much because I'm just waiting for people to hop on before the class officially starts. Hopefully you can hear me. I think we're good to go, but if there are any issues, let me know. All right, if you're taking the class with the kit, make sure you've got a pair of scissors and, aw, thanks Colette. Health and my friendship with her, aw. I'm grateful for our friendship too. So if you haven't already, you will want to get a pair of scissors, and also I haven't done this yet, which is fine. I don't do anything until I get on here, but if you read your little thing, directions, it says to massage the bags a little bit, that second bullet point. So you're going to want to do that. Just kind of take each of the bags, mostly, not really the thick ones. So all of the ones that do not have a line on them, the like thin ones, you're just gonna, for about 30 seconds each one, just kind of massage it. Sometimes after a couple of days of them not being used, the color kind of separates from the icing and gets a little bit like separated. So you're just gonna wanna do like this with your fingers and massage it to kind of try to mix it back up again. All right, so that is all of the ones that do not have a line on them. They're just the plain bag with no Sharpie line. So I will be working on that as well. And I'm gonna give people a few more minutes, just, well, not a few, a couple minutes, 2 minutes, and then we'll start. And one thing that I will say is on the second page, you actually have 9 icing bags. So you do not have 8, you have 9. And that was just something that as I was typing this, I changed my mind after. And I ended up giving you 2 pinks, but you're going to see that on the bags. There's going to be, and I've never done this before, so there's going to be one bag that has 2 Sharpie lines and another one that has 1 Sharpie line. So the extra one is the very thick pink. So the one line is like a thick pink, and then the double line is a very thick pink. And I'll explain that later and kind of as we go. So if you're kind of looking at this going, I thought I only had, 8 bags, you actually have 9, and I'll explain why later. But we will probably go ahead and get started here. All right, so first off, thank you for joining me. My name is Jackie, and this is Jackie's Sweet Schoolhouse. We are a sister company of Jackie's Sweet Shapes, but they're both my companies. They're, different, but sister companies. So cookies and icings from Jackie's Sweet Shapes, cookie decorating classes from Jackie's Sweet Schoolhouse. I am grateful today. So in the comment, I said, please comment with one thing you're grateful for. I'm grateful that it was a sunny day and that my husband is home from the hospital. So if you didn't know, you probably know if you're friends with me on Facebook or you've seen my Instagram stories, but my husband was in the hospital for 10 days, and at a couple points it became life-threatening. So then I wasn't able to see him for like the last 4 days because of the visitor ban, and then he was discharged. Everything's a blur right now, but yesterday, I think, no, the day before, Wednesday, he was discharged. 3 hours later, we were ambulanced back to the ER for an adverse reaction to one of the medications that the doctor gave him. So he's home now, but needless to say, I'm not quite on my A game. It was really hard to just get these kits done. At one point, I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to ship these out. So, but I did, and I got all 32 of them out the door, despite what all was going on. And so I'm grateful to be here to do this class. I just ask for your grace if I'm not quite on my A game like usual. You'll probably tell if you've taken a class with me before. That is why, and it's just been a really hard couple weeks. So I'm just happy to be here and doing this class with y'all. This is one of my favorite things to do, so I am excited about it. Okay, so if you missed the first part, I'm going to get everything set up. All of the ones that do not have a line on them, which will only be 3, so it's going to be your white, your pink, and your blue. These are all going to want to be massaged for about 30 seconds each. So as I'm talking, just take about 30 seconds each to kind of massage them to mix the colors back together. Okay, what we're going to do is, if you haven't already, I want you to make sure you have enough space. Okay, and you've got that parchment paper, which yours was folded up, so you're going to want to unfold it. Just lay it down wherever you're working. That'll just help with the messiness. It does get very messy because we're dealing with icing. And then you can pull everything out of your cookie kit. I like to take my cookies out of my bag and just kind of stack them up somewhere on the top or side, wherever you want, really. And then we do want to just kind of go over a couple of basics. The first 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to go over basics of sort of what supplies we have that we're going to be using and how the class is going to go. We're also going to practice piping with this little worksheet that you have. And so I just want to kind of set us up for success. Like I said, when I created these kits, I wasn't sure if my husband was going to come home. And so I was just struggling mentally. So there are a couple of disclaimers with some of the thicker icings, because I think that the yellow and the pink with the double line are going to be a little bit thicker than usual. They are supposed to be thick because when you're doing roses, you have to get them thick to really like keep this texture here, which I'm about to show you. The reason why you can still kind of see every line and detail is because that icing was really thick. However, when we get to that point, if you're not used to it, like piping, you might be like, oh my gosh, my hand is going to cramp up like crazy because it's just a little bit thicker. I will go over that. I'm going to try to set you up for success. I have the same exact icings that you have, and so I'm going to be in the same boat and able to walk you through all of that. Okay, so if you've never done this before, which we do have quite a few people who have actually never done this before, which is awesome, seeing lots of new names. I think during this time of quarantine, people were like, let me see what I can do from home. So we have a lot of new faces, which is awesome. Okay, so let me go over the ones with the Sharpie. Those ones are going to be your thicker icings. So you have the blue, white, and pink, which are the same color, but a different consistency as the ones that don't have a line on them. These ones are going to be for your outlining and detailing. Okay, so you always use those to outline and to detail. And then the thin ones are what we call flooding, is when you put all of that thin icing inside of the outline, which is like the barrier. It's going to be thinner. It's really easy to use. These ones are a little bit harder because they're just thicker. But the green is for the leaves, and that one's also a little bit thicker, so bear with me. This one is thicker than these. So you've got thick, thin, and very thick. And these ones as well are going to be the very thick ones. So what we want to do is separate the ones that have a line on them and the very thick ones, which is going to be 6 of them. Put those on the right or the left separate from the thin ones, just so that you know these are different than the other ones. Just put them kind of separate, whatever that means for you, so that you know I'm going to grab the thick one and not the thin one, but I'll explain it as we go. Okay, you're going to want your worksheet. You're going to want a pair of scissors. The first one we're going to do is going to be the pink with the one line. So remember not to grab the double pink line, just the one that has the one line. That's going to be the thick one. The other one is really, really thick. So just the pink line one. All the other supplies I will explain in a minute, but I want to go over this first. Okay, so again, if you've done this before, you can feel free to cut it and do it. You know what we're about to do. But for those who don't know, you want to cut a tiny piece off, but don't do it yet because if you're new, you most likely will cut a bigger hole than you think you should. So what I usually say is that little piece that you cut off, you want it to be like a number 2 pencil lead piece that pops out of a number 2 pencil. So in grade school, you have those pencils, that little piece would always pop off and then you'd have to go sharpen it. That piece is how you want to cut this. So if you can see me, I'm cutting just a tiny bit off. So that little triangle that I cut off is tiny. Okay, very tiny. If you're wondering what this thing is, I broke my finger about 2 months ago and it's still healing. It's healing well, but it's obnoxious. So that little piece is going to be about like that. Okay, so then after you cut it, you're going to have this flat piece of plastic. So I just like to kind of squeeze it from the top a little bit and then run my fingers down each side so that when I look at it, I'm looking at a hole and not just a flat piece of plastic. Okay, how to hold the icing bag here. Again, I'm setting you up for success, so just bear with me here as I'm, talking a lot and showing you a lot of things, but trust me, it'll help in the future. So you want to be bringing all that icing down. There's a knot at the top. You want to push all that icing down, and your hand is going to go right under the knot, but above the icing. Okay? So where your palm is and your thumb is right there, right into the palm, and then your thumb is just going to come kind of like you're squeezing your thumb into your palm. That's what you want. And then I like to actually kind of stick my thumb in to get a better squeeze here. And then I'm just going to relax the rest of my fingers over that thumb like this. Okay? If you find another way, That's fine with me, whatever works for you. Sometimes people will do it very differently. That's totally up to you, whatever you feel like you get a good squeeze from. However, just remember you're squeezing from the top. You don't want to be underneath the icing. You want to be right at the top of all that icing, okay? And kind of squeezing into your palm. All right, now the pointer finger on your non-dominant hand is going to come to the base, or sometimes people will kind of hold their wrist like right here. And what that does is just steadies you. So sometimes your hand can be really shaky. That's going to steady you a little bit. And then we want to be squeezing. We want to let this icing kind of drag onto the paper. So as you can see, I'm not touching the tip of it onto the paper. I'm lifted up, and I'm lifted up probably about an inch or half an inch off of that paper, and I'm letting it drag. And the only time that I really touch the paper, in this case, it'll be cookies later, but the only time that you touch the cookie or the paper is when you start it. You kind of drop it down, pull your hand up, and then end it by dropping down. Okay, again, if you've taken my class before, you might be like, man, this icing is so thick right now. It is a little bit thick, so I will say that, yes, but make sure that you're getting a good squeeze from the top. I like to kind of dig that thumb in a little bit to give me an extra squeeze. It's not impossible, but yes, it is a little bit hard. And I do apologize for that. Again, normal circumstances probably wouldn't have been the case. So we're gonna do the whole worksheet. Just make sure you're kind of watching how you hold it, how you're squeezing that icing, making sure that you're dragging the icing. And then we'll do the whole worksheet. So if you are covering that line with that pink icing, you cannot see that black line underneath, then you cut the right amount. If you can see that black line underneath and your line looks smaller than mine, I know, it's kind of different because it's on a screen or whatever, but you can kind of see my lines in proportion to the ink on the paper. It's covering them. Look at your paper and make sure that yours is about the same as mine and that you're completely covering that line. If you're not, you're going to want to take off just a little smidge at a time, cutting that little piece off until you get that right thickness of your icing. All right, and I know I've been talking, so you probably might be ahead of me, but we are going to do the little loops. Again, take your time. I'm up high, and so with this icing, I can really kind of like manipulate it. So I can literally, like, if it hasn't totally gone on the paper yet, I can sort of move it around to where I want to go. It is thick, so just take your time. It's not always this thick. If you're new and you're like, what in the world, I can't do this, it's not always like that. You can also try the blue if you're really having a hard time. The blue with the line on it, feel free to cut a little hole in that if you prefer, and we might have easier time with that. I'm gonna check it out for you. Let's see if this is any different. This one's a little bit better. So if you're getting really frustrated with the pink, you can do the blue that has a line on it. It's definitely a little bit easier. Just try it out if you want. Or the white. So we can do the worksheet with any of the ones that have one line on it. The blue, the pink, and the white. As we go along, I'm going to, I don't always do all of it just because I'm talking so much, but go ahead and do the circle and the heart. Circle's a little bit hard. Probably hardest one is going to be the circle as far as like outlining and hand-eye coordination. The heart is not too bad, but I will show you a little trick with the heart and the circle. I don't really have like a whole lot of tricks for the circle. It's just kind of trying to really get it on that line use that hand to steady, like that little pointer finger, which I'm not using right now. I sometimes don't do it because I'm dealing with a lot of cameras right now. But the circle is hard. Just take your time. At any point when you're doing the little outlines, you can always take it off with your toothpick. So mine is really not pretty. So what I would do is, and even on a cookie, you'd be like, nah, I don't like that. Take it off with your toothpick. It comes off pretty good because it's a thicker icing. And then you just redo it. Because once that thin icing is inside, you're not even really going to be able to tell that you messed up on that outline, because hopefully the goal is that thin icing kind of covers those mistakes. Okay, so I'm redoing it and starting and stopping. Remember, you do kind of dip down on that paper. Occasionally, I just kind of push down that icing, so again, that my hand is completely on the top. I like to push all that icing down so that I'm getting as much of a squeeze as I can. For the heart, it's just like normal, except when you are changing direction at the top, so I started on the bottom, so that means I'm changing directions. I dip down a little bit and then I change direction. So I dip down on the paper, kind of touch the paper with the tip, and that helps me be able to change directions. If you don't feel comfortable to do that, you can also kind of do it in one segment at a time. Like do one side, stop, take a break, do the other side, and stop. Another cool thing is, since the icing is thicker, it's a little bit more able to be manipulated. So, whoops, I can take my toothpick and I can sort of push it a little bit. Obviously, the paper, it's a perfect circle, so you're really trying to like get on that line. So I know that it's perfect circle, so I can kind of like manipulate the icing to go more on that line, if that makes sense. Sometimes you don't always know that though, when you're actually working with like a cookie. Oh, I was looking for my gloves. They were in my lap. Okay, so when you finish the worksheet, I am going to give you about 1 more minute to finish in case you have not. We are going to practice a little bit of flooding on the worksheet, which is something new I've been doing. So I did my circle and my heart with the blue. So what I want to do is I want to grab the thin blue, which again is the one that does not have the line on it, and it's going to feel kind of liquidy, more so than the other one. And when you're doing the thin icing, you don't cut as small of a hole as the outline, but you're also not just going in and, you know, taking a chunk off. It's a little bit bigger, but really not that much bigger when you think about it. So I will show you how much we want to cut off. So if I were doing, if I were doing an outline, I'd cut off like that much. I don't know if you can see that. I know it kind of gets blurry, so I'll wait for it to. But for the thin one, I'm going to cut off this much so that that piece that comes off is about that big. And that's, you know, obviously in proportion to my finger, which I know is a little bit tricky to see on the screen. But what we want to do every time we flood, always make sure to have my little toothpick ready. So you have 3 skewers in your kit, and they're going to be used throughout the class. So always have that handy. And if you've never done this before, watch me first. But I like to start from the outside. I either get really close to that outline or I touch the outline completely. And then I spiral in, and you don't want to have any gaps or holes in the middle, so that when you then use your toothpick, you kind of swirl it and you push it out to the outline, but you're only doing like the outer part is the only one that you're really using that toothpick. So a lot of times, I'll show you for example on the heart, a lot of times people will do like this. They'll kind of, okay, I'm going on the outside, and then they'll leave this hole in the middle. And so now not only do they have to, you know, push it out to the middle, But now they're going, oh, now I need to grab some icing and put it in the middle, and it just makes it longer. And then a lot of times you just don't have enough icing. So what I will be doing is sitting here for a while because I just don't have enough icing in there. And so if that happens to you, when you realize you don't have enough icing, you're going to just drop in a bunch more, because we really want it to be enough icing that we only sit here for, I mean, for this surface area, a couple of seconds, but for like a cookie, you only want to sit there for about 20 to 30 seconds with your toothpick before it's all just spread. So if you're finding that on a cookie you're sitting there for a while, like a minute or two, you're going to want to drop in more icing. So that's why I always say start on the outside. It's okay if you're not all the way touching that outline, because you also don't want it to overflood. You don't want it to overflood. So if you're not quite touching that outline, that's fine. Just make sure that in the middle, everything is filled. You don't have any holes or gaps to where you could see that cookie underneath. So then when you go to use a toothpick, all you're doing is using it to spread it to the outline, and it's going to be much quicker. You want that icing to be like a fluffy little pillow on top of your cookie. The meringue powder is what makes it look kind of fluffy, which is awesome. But you want to put enough in that you're not sitting there forever. The icing does dry. It starts drying within about 2 minutes. That is a number that I came up with. That's not something that somebody's like, in 2 minutes it dries. I've just noticed that after about 2 minutes, the icing starts to crust over, so that if I were to poke it right now, it would leave like you can't even see it because of it's so light, but I poked it and I left an indent because it already started to harden, and it's been about 2 or 3 minutes. So that's why you want to get that all in, not too much, not too little, 30 seconds at most with that toothpick, and then don't touch it, don't mess it up, because it will get messed up. If you wait longer than 2 minutes and you're still doing it, or you bump it or whatever, it will get messed up. Okay, that's the little tutorial about outlining and flooding. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments if you're taking the class live. So we're done with the worksheet. We can put this aside, or you can lick it if you want. I've had people do that many times. All right, and the first one we're going to do. So I'm leaving so I'll talk about it, but I'm gonna leave it for later. You do have bags and these little Wilton tips. If you got 3 Wilton tips, it's only because like one of them is an extra. So if you're like, I didn't get 3, you only need 2, but one of them was an extra if I bought it in like a set. I had so much trouble like finding, so I went to like Hobby Lobby and I bought like all of their tips out, and then I went to Party Time and I bought all of their tips, and then I still didn't have enough. So what I did is I went to Party Time online and I purchased a bunch, but I didn't get them until today. So that might be why you might have like a combination one, because I'm literally just bought out everything and I didn't realize, oh, I could buy these online. So these are going to be for later when we do the roses, but just know that the bags are going to be for that. Okay, so, and everything else will be good, but that's what the bags and the Wilton tips are for. The sprinkles will also be used at the end. The napkins you can use kind of as we go. Like the icings obviously get messy, but a lot of times with the icings, again, that 2-minute thing applies to the tips as well. So the tip of the icing, it's already crusted over because it's been exposed to oxygen. So every time before you use it, you're just going to want to kind of like, you know, wipe off the tip of it. And so then that way you're not getting a bunch of crusty sugar when you go to use it. Does that make sense? Okay, hopefully. All right. The first one we're going to do is going to be the butterfly. And I chose, so a lot of times when I do a class, how do I choose the order that we do them in? Well, we have about 2 hours to decorate these cookies, and it will take about an hour and a half to 2 hours. So we always want to start with the ones that have detail on them. So for instance, the butterfly, it has a blue base, and then it also has the white detailing on top. So we have to do the blue base first and let that dry as long as possible, which is going to be an hour and a half. And then we go and we do the white on top of it, but we have to have that blue be as dry as possible before we add the white. So what we have first is our blue with the line on it. If you haven't already, I already did when I was doing the worksheet, but you're going to want to cut that little piece off. Okay, so if you haven't already, go ahead and do that. And if you are having trouble squeezing it out, you can always cut off a little bit more. So I'm going to cut off a little smidge more just to make it a little bit easier. And I'm leaving the middle part empty or naked cookie, because that's going to be the little body of the white dots. Okay, but we are going to do the right and left side. We're going to follow the cookie, and you can feel free to watch me first if you want on this one side here. We try to go as close to the edge as possible without it falling off, but we are going to do that whole outline of the cookie. And then the only thing that's a little bit different is when we come up, we're just kind of cutting off where that body is going to be. So that'll be our first step. So if you're watching me, go ahead and do that first step. Okay, and then we'll do the left side, or if you did the right side, I did the right side, now I'm doing the left side. You might have been vice versa. But again, cut off that little part where the body is going to be. Take your time, make sure there are no gaps or cracks in this. You don't have to do it all in one movement, like just now I took a break. You can always pick up where you left off. Sometimes you get a little stressed out about this and you realize you're not breathing. Even happens to me. I've been doing this for 7 years and I'm still like, okay, breathe, Jackie, breathe. All right, once you have both sides, I'm going to talk a little bit about some things that might happen that you just want to kind of look out for. You want to make sure when you look at your cookie that this is a barrier. You want this to be like a wall. It's completely encasing, it's going to be encasing that thin icing. Okay, so you don't want any cracks, nothing in that icing barrier. If you're unhappy with it, you can take it off with your toothpick and do it again. Sometimes, and this doesn't usually apply a whole lot because we've gotten really good at making the cookies not have as many cracks in them, but as you can see on mine, this left side, I've got a little crack in the cookie there. If the crack in the cookie is where that outline is, and you think, and this really probably is just me being a little paranoid, sometimes I think that the thin icing is going to seep under the barrier through that crack. So sometimes I'll just put another little dot of icing wherever that crack is, just to make sure that that icing doesn't seep under. Has that happened before? One time in like thousands of cookies that I've made. So I'm probably just being paranoid, but that is what I do for if there's a crack. Sometimes, and I mentioned this in the other class, I don't often mention this, I've only mentioned this in one other class, but sometimes I will look at the cookie and sometimes they just bake kind of weird. So I'll look at the cookie and if there's one side that like is totally like dipping down right at where that outline is, what I'll do is I'll go over it with another layer on top. So it's like I've got one outline and then I go over and I just put another outline where that is, because if it's seeping down at one side, if that outline's not tall enough, it's going to overflow. So again, is that common? Not typically, but sometimes just when we bake them, weird stuff happens and the cookies can kind of be slanted. So if that is the case for you, you're going to want to look at it, and then what you'll do is literally just put like another outline right on top of that part. That might not apply to anybody. I'm just saying it in case it does, because I said it last time and I hope that it worked and helped with some of that over flooding. Okay, so now that I've been talking, this is dry. So we can take our thin icing, so not the one that has a 1 on it, the other one, and we are going to flood this just like you did on the practice worksheet. All right. So again, starting outside, you get real close, and then you fill it in, no holes or gaps in the middle, so that when you take your skewer, you're just kind of spiraling and pushing it out to the outline. You've got a couple of minutes to do so, like I said, but you really want to only do it in about 30 seconds or less. And then once it's in, you can pop some air bubbles with that. Sometimes, very carefully, people will kind of shake and tap it. Not always necessary, but sometimes that does kind of help speed up that sort of settling process. And that is fine as well if you want to do that. You've probably seen people on TV do it, so you think it's cool and you can do it, fine. It's totally fine. You just don't want to do it too aggressively that you break the cookie, or like I did, I kind of messed up this outline here, which is fine. So if you did that, then I'm going to redo that part that I just messed up. It's funny, every time I teach a class, I always mess up in some area, which makes for like a perfect teaching moment. But it's funny because when I'm just doing cookies, decorating cookies, I don't mess up as much as I do in a class. So it's very funny to see that that happens. Okay, so we did one side, and then we're gonna do the other side. It looks like my screen kind of froze up, so I hope y'all can still see me. If somebody finishes up a little early, if you can just let me know that you can still hear me and see me, that would be helpful for me to know. All right, so we spiral it in, push it out. And then if you want to give it a little tap gently, you can do so. After that, we let this baby dry. Okay. Oh, great. Awesome. Thank you. It's weird. It's like I have like a little preview of my live video, but it's frozen. So I'm just trusting that it's not an issue, which it's not. So this butterfly is going to dry for about 45 minutes or so. And so remember what I said, you just want to be very careful not to mess this guy up as he's drying. So put it in a safe place. You might have a lot more room than I do here, but I would just kind of move it up very, very carefully and slowly to a spot that you know it's not going to get messed up by anything. Okay. All right. And then since we have our blue, we're going to do the next blue thing, which is going to be this guy. Okay, and at the end, it is going to hopefully somewhat look like this. I'm laughing because I don't think that I will necessarily make it be able to look as good as that. Because every time I do it, it's always different. But I didn't have a very set way that I was putting the roses. So it definitely won't look like that. Hopefully it'll still look good. But as you can see, we have the blue vase here. The only difference is that we have to create this little tag. Okay, so that's not going to be too hard. We are just going with our blue, we're just going to kind of create this tag. That'll be the first thing that we do, and then the rest will just kind of be following the outline of the cookie, and we do have to create the line on the top. But like I said, I will walk you through it step by step. Okay, so we have this tag, and whenever I'm doing a cookie where I have to make my own lines like this, I just kind of think, how do I want this to look? Okay, and sort of in my mind, I create this line in my mind, and then when I'm ready, I just go ahead and make it with the icing. So you have the thick, because that's going to be the one used for the outline. I want to mirror whatever I'm seeing over here. So this is the one side of the tag. So what I can do is basically just draw a line down to where that tag ends. There is kind of like a little loop up here, so that's why I didn't come like all the way over here, because I'm leaving room for this little white loop over here. And then once you have that, we're going to make a line straight across here, and we want it to be this little guy right here. There's a bump out here. It's right where that bump ends and that it divots in. That's the start of our line. So we're going to go from that point and then draw a line over towards that tag. And I'm going to pause because this is the hardest part of this particular one, like the outline part. So if you don't like it, you can wipe it off and do it again, but I'm going to give you a minute if you need to redo it to do this straight line across and then this little line down. All right. Once you have that, then we're going to do the rest of the outline. So starting where you left off, and then down, across, back up, and that'll be it for this one. Again, remember, if you're having a little bit of a hard time squeezing, remember to kind of push that thumb in. That's what helps me to get that good squeeze, and then use the fingers to kind of press that thumb into your palm. Okay, I'm waiting for it to dry a little bit, but what we'll do next is we'll add all this blue icing into, not all of it, that's not what I meant. You will probably use about half of what's left, is my guess, but we'll spiral out, come all the way in, use that toothpick to press it out to the sides. Okay, it should be good now. We don't have to wait too long for it to dry. And then again, you don't have to touch it. You can get kind of close to it if you're afraid of overflooding, but then you just want to make sure you have no gaps in the middle. And like a good amount that it's like a fluffy pillow on top of the cookie. Okay, and then take that toothpick, swirl it out. If you do feel that you're having some trouble, this part should be easy, okay? So if you feel like you're having trouble really swirling it, you might not have enough icing in it, so then you would drop some more in it, because you do want to be able to, you know, pretty easily put all that icing in there. And then again, if you want to shake and tap a little. If you notice my flowers over here on the left, my mom got me those on Saturday when my husband was in the hospital, just to brighten my day. I love flowers. It's just kind of sad I don't really buy flowers as much anymore, but I love them, and I thought that was super sweet. So I brought them in here for some background, something for y'all to see, because I was like, well, we are doing flowers, so might as well bring my little flowers in here. After you've done this, again, you want to let it dry, and we want to move it to, I think we want to move it to a safe spot. Let me think. Let's actually do not the yellow, the white. So hang on a moment and we'll do the white tag while it's here. All right. So again, if you haven't already, if you're ready to move on, hopefully I'm not going too fast. We are going to take our white with the line on it, Sharpie line, that's our thick one, and we're going to cut that hole. Remember to be not too small of a hole. I'm trying to think, how can I show you? It's so hard to see it on here. But about the width of a number 2 pencil lead there. And then sometimes before I start, I just like to take some and put it on my napkin so that I make sure it's coming out nice. It's good. And then I can get started. So what we're going to do on this one, we've got a little rectangle here that's going to be white. And then you have like a little loop, if you can see it right there. I'm trying to point to it. If you can see it right here, it's a little loop right there. Don't worry about the loop just yet, but what we will do is we'll come make a rectangle, sort of a rectangle, I guess. And we can hug right up next to the blue. That's fine as well. I don't always do that, but that's fine. So you just want to have this little rectangle here. And then at the top, you can create sort of this semicircle like that. It's very small, just like a little tag almost. And that's all we got. So we've got outline our rectangle, do the little loop on the top, let it dry for 30 seconds or so. In the meantime, we can grab our thin white and kind of massage it a little bit. Now it's a small space, so you're really not dropping in a whole lot. We might not even necessarily need our toothpick. So if you want to watch me, sometimes what I do, I am going to cut that regular size hole a little bit, just a tiny bit bigger than the outline one. And sometimes what I do is I don't even use a toothpick. So I will get up really close and then I fill it in, and then I almost like use the tip of this bag to sort of be my toothpick. And if I need to like spread it, I will. But sometimes you really don't even need that toothpick, especially on that the really like tiny areas. You just drop it in, and that's it. Okay, I'll give y'all a minute to keep doing that. We are gonna let this one dry, and then the next thing that we'll do is the little flower bouquet. So this is the flowers in the vase, but there's one that looks like a little bouquet. We're gonna do that one next, and we will need our thick white and our thin white. Okay, so let me get that one for y'all. And our finished product today is going to look a little bit different than this, and I will explain why. So let's carefully move this guy over, if you're done with it, to a safe spot. Don't let anything bump it or touch it. We're letting him dry. We've got this one. And the finished product won't really look like this, but it will still look cute, something like this. And I'll explain why, because what I ended up doing, because I could not find, like my story, if you missed it in the beginning, I went to Hobby Lobby, I went to Party Time, I bought everything out of these little tips. These Wilton tips. So what you ended up getting was you got a bigger one and a smaller one. So if you can see these roses, they're the same kind of like they look the same width and everything is because I use them with the same number of the Wilton. So there's like different numbers, and the bigger, like the higher it goes up, the bigger the tip is, and it makes like bigger roses. So it might not necessarily look like this. We're gonna play with it. Everybody's is literally, if I took a picture of every single person's, it's always gonna be different because people like to put their leaves in different places, or they like to add more roses. It's really cool just kind of seeing people get creative in what they want to do. But we probably will end up doing like some smaller ones, some bigger ones. But when we get to that, I will kind of show you some things that you can do, that you can make them all yellow roses, all pink roses. It's pretty cool. We have some flexibility in how we want to be artistic. But for the whites, what we're going to do is we're going to create 2 segments. So we've got this little triangle here, and then we have a bigger triangle here. You see that? And you see how they kind of look like together but separate? That's because we create both segments, and then we outline and flood one, we let it dry, and then we flood the other. So it makes it look like super smooth, like it's not like I re-outlined it right here. It looks like it dried together, but you still have that separation. And that is because you do one segment at a time. And if you've taken a class with me before, I love doing this because it does create sort of this cool sort of separation without it being like a stark separation. So the first thing we want to do is grab our thick white. That's going to be the one with the line on it. And we're going to make the thin triangle first. And I did that one over here on this side. All right, let me look at this cookie. Sometimes I have to see what I did. Okay, that's interesting. I did something that I'm saying it's interesting. So what I chose to do, over here you have this bump, that's going to be a rose. Right where it ends is going to be our first triangle. I sort of actually like angled up a little bit. And that's what I'm saying is interesting, is because I didn't do this like straight line across, because I wanted to sort of create this dimension. So it's interesting that you can use icing, just the way that you place lines can kind of give it this sort of dimension. So I wanted it to kind of look more curved. So what I did was I didn't do a straight line across, I kind of went up. And I did the same thing on the other side, but we're just dealing with this one first. So once you have that line, you're going to come straight down to where the tip is. And then of course you're going to complete this triangle by doing the line that's on the side here. So take a moment, make sure it looks something kind of like that. Might not look the exact same, but we just want that sort of smaller triangle right there. Okay, and then the other one, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of, again, give it that curved look. So I'm not completely going straight across. I'm going to kind of, not like dramatically, but I am going to kind of curve it a little bit. So you see how it's sort of kind of like curves, not like a very straight line. And then the only thing you have to do is just complete that barrier by doing the sideline. And then that's it. We're not going to do another line there in the middle. Just that. So you should look something like this. Wait about 30 seconds or so for it to dry before we add that thin icing. Again, as we're going on, comment if you've got any questions if you're taking the class live. I know we do have some people taking it pre-recorded on YouTube, totally fine. Just know that you can also purchase previous virtual classes during this time of being stuck at home. So I've got like, I don't know, like 10 of them, I think. And what I'm doing is I'm sending people those links for that class and then sending them the cookie kits so that they can take any pre-recorded class. They can still take it, you know, at any time, which has been really cool. A lot of people have been doing the Mardi Gras and the LSU football ones. I think some people have been doing the Valentine ones because it's really just like a love themed one. So if you're interested in that, just know that you can take that pre-recorded class at any time and following along with the cookie kit that I will ship to you. Okay, so next up is our thin white, which we should have close by because we just used it for the name tag. And so we are going to do the bigger triangle, and that's it. So just the big triangle. You will want that toothpick to kind of get into those corners there. Sometimes it's really hard to get this icing bag tip to go into the corners. This icing is a little bit thicker, so just make sure you're putting a good amount in, and then you might want to give it a little tap and shake. Okay, and then we're not doing the other one just yet. We want to let it dry for at least 5 minutes before you do it. That'll give us that separation that looks really nice when it dries. All right. While it's drying, we're not going to sit here for 5 minutes watching it. That would be ridiculous. But we are going to sort of work on our last cookie, the outline and the flooding, while we wait for that. So if you want, you can keep it there if you have enough, space. I do not, so I'm just going to move mine carefully a little bit over, but I know I'm going to come back to it. And then we want to grab this little guy. Mine looks really weird. Because it's all cracked and weird looking, but yours look prettier. So the original one that I posted is this same one. I chose to keep the leaf on the ones that I gave you. So this one has a leaf, this one does not. This is the one that we're doing with the leaf because leaves are fun. So I figured, why did I cut it off? I'm just gonna leave it. So we are going to do the leaf. Now, the only really kind of hard part, I guess, is that you now have to create your own line there, but it really won't be that difficult. You're just going to kind of divot in and come back, so I will show you that. But the whole rest of it's just going to be, the following along. Now, remember to grab the pink one that's already been cut, and it's got the one line. Don't cut the one that has the double line because it's really, really thick icing and it's going to be hard. This one's already thick as it is, and I apologize for that. It is thicker than I would usually have it, but don't grab the really, really thick one because that's going to be hard. So what we're going to do is outline, and then what I mean by creating your own line, you're sort of going to create this V here, like that. So that's really the only line that you're creating yourself, and then the rest of it you're just going to follow the outline of the cookie minus the leaf. So take your time, squeeze it hard. If you need to take breaks, you can, and use that thumb kind of in like this. Really get a good push, squeezing from the top down. Yeah, as I'm doing this, I'm like, oh boy, it's a little thick. So again, my mind was, I was a little out of it, worried about my husband, who was in the hospital for 10 days, which is crazy. I don't think it's really quite hit me, to be honest. My husband and I literally 10 minutes before I got on live, we were talking about how we're a little in shock and it hasn't quite hit us that he literally could, not have come home alive. And I think that when you go through something traumatic like that, I think your body just sort of goes, I just need to make it. I just need to get through. And then I think later, he was saying, he was like, I think in a few days, I'm going to be just crying about this whole experience. And I said, yeah, I think I'll be right there with you. Although I was crying the whole time, so I'm not, it definitely has hit me. It's just that it's very interesting how our bodies sort of respond to traumatic events just to get us through, But at the end, we want it to look like this. And so we're gonna let it dry a little bit. I know it's a little thicker, so I'm gonna wait a little bit because I think some of y'all might need to have some more time to really squeeze it out. But the next step we'll do is get our thin pink, we'll flood it, we'll let it dry, and then we'll take our rose bouquet back. We're gonna do the white for that little triangle in there, and then at that point we will take a break and do some door prizes. I like to talk, so I might fill the time talking, but if you comment with some questions, that'll be a great time for me to answer them. I like questions because then I'm not just trying to fill the space with talking about whatever. So you can ask questions at that time, and that'll be perfect. The point of the break is, yes, door prizes are awesome, but it's also a chance to let our cookies dry a little bit longer, because a lot of times, obviously, when I do this, I wait hours, before I start to detail them. Well, we don't have hours, so we're just trying to prolong doing the details as long as possible so that they still look good and that, that icing is dry enough that we can put them on top, but we're not waiting forever, to do it. So that's kind of why we take that break, so that we can give those cookies some time to dry. And with that being said, this one will be good to go. So the pink one that has no line on it whatsoever, just make sure you grab it, you look at it. It doesn't have any line. If you haven't already, massage it a little bit. If you came in a little late, in the very beginning, I just said you want to massage it to mix it up. Sometimes that icing sort of, it's like the water and the color separates from the powdered sugar and the other good stuff. So you just want to massage it a little bit. All right. Once you've done that, cut a little bit more off. Okay, and then same thing. You should almost be a pro at this, right? This is the best part. This is like the most fun part. This is the part that everybody loves. Getting all that icing in there. And you do sort of like push it, like I don't always hide the outline, but sometimes I do. Like if I've made a mistake or whatever, I will kind of take that toothpick or the skewer or whatever you have, and just sort of push it to sort of cover those areas without pushing it off the cookie. Like obviously you don't want it to overflood, but you do kind of push it, onto it so that it sort of hides some of that outline a little bit. It does take longer though, like sometimes I really don't care, and I'm like, I don't care if I see the outline or not. But there are folks who really, will spend the time to cover the outline. That is fine, obviously. If you have that time, go for it. If you don't care, then, obviously you don't need to do that. But we will let this guy dry as well. Thank you, Kate. Yes, I am very glad that he is doing well as well. He's not 100%, but he's home. He's himself. He's peppy. He's tired, but we're both just very happy that he's home, especially right now. And we're staying home. Gosh darn it. Today I ordered some like food online, and it's the first time I had done that, but I just was like, I don't want to cook today. So I did, I don't know, DoorDash or something like that, and got some sushi. Let's see, it was like a sushi burrito. So it was like they put the sushi inside a tortilla. Like it was all like the same ingredients. It was actually pretty good. It was very strange because then it was like, am I having sushi or am I having a burrito or a quesadilla? I don't know what I'm eating right now. So that was pretty good. And he just like left it at the door. Like I didn't have to interact with him or anything, which is awesome. I mean, you do end up spending, kind of a little bit more, but I just know that I'm gonna not want to cook all the time. So I did make some banana bread this morning, and that was fun. Love banana bread. Okay, we're going to do this little triangle. I will warn you that it is a narrow space, and so what you might have to do is put you know, as much as you can, but then there might be a little bit of space because our tip of our icing just can't get down that far. So then you'll take your toothpick and just sort of spread it into that deeper corner. And if you need to, you know, drop in a little bit more near the top, and then of course use that toothpick to get into that harder spot there. But what's going to happen is when it dries, it'll look, you know, separate, but not, you know, drastically separate. So whenever you let those two segments that are right next to each other, you do one and you let it dry, it's, you know, it creates this look like this, which I love and I use it very often. You will see that again if you take another class because I love doing that. Okay, so at this point in time, we'll take our break and I'll have, you don't need to do this, but I will move my cookies very carefully so you can kind of see what all has been done up until now. So if you are a little bit behind, you want to make sure that yours, you know, catch up to this point right here. And we are probably about halfway done, I would say. All right. And if you need to grab some water, go to the bathroom, this would be a great time to do that. If you're like, no, I don't want to miss the door prize, I will email you. So don't worry if you win a door prize and you're like, oh, I didn't even hear it because I was in the bathroom. Don't worry. You will be notified that you won a door prize. So make sure you get some water, do what you need to do. We're going to take about a 5-minute break. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them if they're, you know, anything related to baking, cookies, cookie decorating, royal icing, my life. I don't know if you really want to know much about my life, but anything, you can ask questions and I will answer them. I'll see them in the comments and I will see, where's my list? My door prize list. All right. So I will talk, you guys feel free to comment if you want to ask any questions, but I had this like, this discount going on from, I think it was like last Thursday till yesterday. And it was 30% off a virtual class, either in the future or in the past. So like the pre-recorded ones I was telling you about. So 30% off is about, it depends on the class, but it's about like $10 off. And so that's going to be the door prizes today. We had quite a few people sign up, so I'm going to do 4 people who are going to get 30% off. So that deal that is no longer happening, you will get the deal. And it can be a future or a past one. The future ones that I have coming up, I'm like, what month is it right now? It is March. So April, I've got Easter. It's like an Easter candy themed one, like Peeps, Chicks, chocolate covered egg, the little speckled eggs, chocolate bunny. And then I'm going to be doing a Cinco de Mayo themed one, which is going to be like the 1st of May. And then I'm also going to be doing, I think I'm doing a Mother's Day class and a grad class. So for all those grads who, you know, so sad that, you know, can't walk, we can still make them cookies and give them that gift. If that's something, you know, if you know a grad, then that class would be perfect to be able to make them something and give it to them. So those are the 3 I think I'm going to have in May. And then I've got the April one is the Easter. I may include another one in April. I'm not certain, but I will let you know. So what I'm going to do is what am I trying to say? A random number generator. And I have everybody who ordered a kit, your name is on here. And if you ordered 5 kits, your name is obviously on the list 5 times. And it is going to be random. So let me get this up. And we'll have 4 people who will win 30% off, and then you will receive that discount code at the end of class or sometime tomorrow. Okay, so the first person to win 30% off is going to be Celeste. is first name Celeste Onestel. I don't know if I'm saying your last name right, but Celeste is our first lucky winner. Second lucky winner is Colette Mitchell, a dear friend of mine who has been, she's probably taken all of my classes, every single one, which is, I'm always so grateful. Thank you. Third person is going to be Donna Lambert. You are the third person, won 30% off. And then our last person is going to be Catherine Rothkamp. She ordered 5 kits, so her name is in 5 times, and she also won the door prize last time, so she's super lucky. That's awesome. All right, that's it. You all 4, you will win your 30% off a future class or a previous one if, you know. I'm sending out some, so like if you purchase a kit today or tomorrow, I'm sending those out on Monday. And then if you purchase anytime after that, sometime next week, I will ship those out, the pre-recorded ones. And then obviously the Easter ones will be sent to you by April 8th. So those will be up until like next week or so, and I'll be working on those. All right, cool. Anybody have any questions? I don't think so. Don't you just like love door prizes? I used to live for those when I was younger. We so I was a swimmer growing up. Again, stories. Sorry, I love sharing stories. But I was a swimmer from age like 4 to 18, and I still swam after that, but I quit and I went into coaching and swim instructing. So when I was younger, we used to have banquets, and I remember they would always do these door prizes where there would be like a sticker like under your chair. Have y'all ever done those before? It's so funny. Like it became like they would always do it. Like they would always have a sticker under the chair. So then like as you kind of got older, you're like, ooh, where's this chair with the sticker? Oh my goodness. And it was usually like, oh, if the sticker's under your chair, you win the centerpiece in the middle, which might have been like candy or flower bouquet or whatever. I was always like, I'm gonna win the door prize. I love door prizes. So that's why I do that. Because it's just, I love them. So why not, right? Okay. Alright, I think we'll get started here. That probably was a couple minutes. Let me see. Yeah, we'll be good. Okay, so for this next step, got a couple things to do. We need to do the detailing of the butterfly and the body of the butterfly, and then he will be done. I think we're going to do that one first because we started with the butterfly first, and then we'll do the flowers and the leaves, which are going to be a little tricky. Again, we're dealing with thick icing, and so I promise you there's going to be somebody whose bag busts, because it happens to me very often. So if it happens to me, I know it's going to happen to you. One of you, not all of you, obviously, but somebody is going to probably have a busted bag. So we will approach that as we go. I did include extra bags, or 1 extra bag. And then you're going to want to have your sprinkles and your tips. We will get to that, but first I want to do the butterfly to kind of feel like we have at least 1 cookie done before we get to the roses. And then the last thing you're going to finish is the pink one, since that's the one that's still a little bit wet. Okay, so again, you probably don't have to do this, but I am moving mine over, and then the butterfly is the one that we want. Okay, looks kind of tricky, but I'm going to walk you through it, each kind of step. So we want first our thick white icing. So that's the one that has the line on it. Okay, again, take your napkin and just kind of clean the tip of it because it has been exposed to oxygen, so it is going to be, you know, a little bit crusty. And then we've got 4 dots in the middle, so that's the easiest thing, I will say. So let's do that first. well, we'll do the easiest thing first. So with your dots, you can basically outline a circle and then just kind of fill it in. And then again, this is the thick icing, but you can, you know, outline and kind of flood. It's not going to be the same consistency, but you'll still get a dot icing. So that's one. And then outline and flood, 2. I think I might have made them too big. I'll go smaller as I go down. 3. And they are touching, the outside of that circle is touching, you know, the wings. And then the 4th. So yours might look different than mine. Mine looks different than my first one, like my original one that I advertised. So obviously it's okay. But whatever it looks like, 4 dots right there. And then I'll let you finish that. I'm going to take, you know, the rest of the outline. Obviously, if you're an artist and you see something different and you want to do something different, go for it. If your heart is telling you, I'm going to do this design, that's totally fine. But for most of us, I think we're very black and white. Tell me like it is. Show me what to do. So I will show you kind of every single line, and then I'll do it, pause, let you do it. But I'm going to do it exactly like I did on the advertised one and just take it like one step at a time. So the very first one that I do is I'm going to do on the right side, the top wing, and you can watch me first. But I'm basically going to start really close to that first circle, and I'm going to basically re-outline all the way down. So you have those 2 little divots, and then you separate it by coming straight across. So you're going to do kind of like you're re-outlining, and then you come straight across down the middle. I'm going to take this one kind of slow, so I'll wait a little bit, especially because I can't really see you, so I'll try to go a little slow. And then the next step, we're going to do 2 teardrops. Okay, so you're going to do one big one up towards the top of the wing, come down, and then one small one. So again, if you want to watch me first, we start where we left off. You're going to do a big teardrop, 1, and then the second one is going to be a smaller one. If you cut a bigger hole in your whites, you know, some of these details might be a little bit hard. So like you might have already done that, and that's fine. But like if you do kind of have like a bigger hole on the next, like on the bottom part, the bottom wing, you can do like 1 teardrop instead of 2. If you feel like you're not gonna be able to fit both of those in, that's fine as well. My icing is a little thicker than, like the hole is a little thicker than the first one that I did. But I think I'm gonna be able to manage to get them all in. Okay, where there's a little space right here, we're going to do either 1 dot or 2. Because it's a little bit bigger of a hole, I'm going to do 1 dot. 1 little dot of icing right there. All right. See, it's not too bad, right? It's like as we walk through step by step, it's not too hard, hopefully. All right, so moving on to the bottom right part of the wing, our first line, we're going to come straight across. Okay, and then we are also going to just re-outline it. And then when you come to the top, not quite touching where you left off, but you're going to stop just before you connect that. that line. And I'll give you a moment to do that. Again, if you can't fit 2 teardrops or you just don't want to, then you can do 1. I'm gonna see if I can do 2, but it's basically the same thing that you did on the top. You start, you know, where you left off. You're going to sort of come out, do a teardrop, and then do another one. All right, I think I did like 5 dots. This part doesn't necessarily matter. I think I want to do, okay, so if I do 1 dot where obviously there's more space, like that's good. But then I think I want to do 3 dots because again, my hole is a little bit bigger, so the white is just bigger. So I think I'm gonna fit 3 dots. Obviously you can do whatever you want. You can do 1 dot, no dots, does not matter. And then the tricky part is now you have to do the other side. And you know, like any butterfly is symmetrical. We're trying to get it to be as symmetrical as possible. I know that that's very difficult. So just, you know, do your best. It really doesn't matter. But the same thing that we did on the right side, same thing on the left. So I'm still gonna go step by step and do it slow in case you are still following along with me, but it is just the same that we just did, just on the other side. If you are right-handed, it's a little harder to do the left side because you don't have as much space. So for instance, if I'm doing the right side, my hand is here, there's no cookie right there. When you're doing this side, you just have to be a little careful. Like sometimes the angle is going to be a little bit different. Like if I'm here, I can kind of like lay my wrist flat more, but if I'm here, I have to kind of like hold my wrist up. So sometimes what I do is I'll tell people to rotate the cookie so that that left side is now on the right side, but in doing so, you're not going to be as symmetrical. So this is like the only time that I wouldn't do that. Like typically I would to have more space, but here I'm just going to keep it like that because then I can see and make it more symmetrical. Okay, y'all ready? Here we go. No pressure, but we want to start on the bottom close to that first dot. You're going to do the 2 bumps and then come across. Already it's not symmetrical. Of course. Always when I'm doing a live class. It's okay. Okay, so then you're gonna do 2 teardrops, 1 bigger one. It's kind of like following the, you know, outline of the cookie. And then 1 small one. Symmetry just went out the window. I'm gonna use my toothpick like I showed you in the beginning to kind of manipulate it a little bit. Make it look a little better, but not great, y'all. That's okay. Like I said, I'm not quite on my A game. And I think y'all understand, so it's all good, right? Okay, we're going to do 1 dot right there. And then we'll do the bottom part. Okay, so we start in the middle, we draw that line across, and then from here on out it's a little easier just following the outline. And then you've got the 2 teardrops. And then trying to make it symmetrical. The 3 dots. Doesn't look too bad. It's like when it's done, it looks better. A little bit more. My camera is not focused. Come on, focus. Oh, it'll be fine. It'll focus in a little bit. Once you have done all of this, I want you to feel proud of yourself because you just completed your first cookie. So good job. If you've never done this before, you should feel proud because it looks, you know, obviously you turned a very plain cookie into a beautiful, decorated, detailed cookie. So good job. You can put this one off to the side, or you can also put it in your box for safekeeping. Sometimes I do that so that it doesn't get messed up, and I know it's in a safe place. All right, now comes the fun part. And you know what I just realized? My laptop has low battery. So what I'm probably going to do is run to go get my charger because I don't want it, because then I won't be able to see y'all's comments. So hang tight. I didn't realize that it was low battery. I will be right back in like 1 minute. Sorry. Okay, because if I lose my charger, I won't be able to see y'all's comments. All right, we want to put this cookie we're gonna work on next. And don't mind me while I plug in my laptop. So sorry. All right. Never a dull moment with me. Because if you know me, you know that is true. Okay, so back at it. Hello. Here is something important. So when you look at your bags, you have 2 that are cut, and then you have 1 that is not. So why I did this is because I know how much I need to cut to put these little guys in, but I knew that you probably didn't know, and so I just trying to make it easier for you. But what we want to do is we need to put these tips in these bags, okay? So take this with the tips and just open it up if you haven't already. I'm gonna walk you through this. Okay, whoop, okay. So what we're gonna do, you're gonna take the tip and you're going to put it inside of the bag. Okay, try to show you this. Whoop. So it's inside, and then what you're gonna do is you're going to, with that opening, you're just going to push it as much as you can. Obviously don't tear the bag, but once it's, you know, got a good tight kind of seal, then you're good. Like, then we can put the icing in and we can use it. The reason why I didn't send you these, you know, with the icing already in it and the tip already in it, is because, again, when that icing is exposed to oxygen, it crusts over. So I didn't want to send it to you and then we couldn't use it because it was completely crusted over. So what we need to do is we need to transfer our yellow and our pink with the double line into the bags. Now, before you do this, I'm gonna do it first. I'm gonna show you, we'll do one of them first, and then we'll do the other one, because obviously we have 2. But there's one that's going to be a bigger rose, and then one that's gonna be a smaller rose. So you can look at the tips and you can see, okay, I've got one bigger one and one smaller one, or you can even read it On the tip, it'll say 16, 17, 18, 21, 32, whatever. And so you're going to have a big one and a small one. Now I want you to decide if you want your pink roses to be bigger or your yellow roses to be bigger. And then whatever you decide, if you say I want my yellow roses to be bigger, I'm going to have my yellow roses be bigger. Then I'm going to put the yellow icing inside of the one that's bigger that I just put, or vice versa. So let's do, I've never really done this before, so I'm trying to see how I want to do this. Let's put both tips inside both bags so that they both look like this. All right. So we've got tip inside the bag, and then that tip, try not to poke the bag as you're placing it in. Once you see it, you know, right there out of that opening, take it, pull it down so that it is a good little seal. And if it's not completely sealed, it will be once we put the icing in. This is probably like the trickiest thing out of the whole class, okay? So that's why I'm taking a little bit more time with it. Okay, now you have your yellow and your pink with the double line. What we want to do is we want to kind of pull that icing. Wow, I just totally like stretched the bag. That's fine. We want to pull that icing down so that we get a good cut without losing a bunch of icing. So we are going to cut, and this doesn't matter because we are transferring this into that bag. So I'm going to cut a good chunk off because this is really thick. So if I cut a little bit off, it's going to take me forever to transfer this into the other bag. So I want to cut a good amount off. I might even cut off more, to be honest. Okay. Now, listen carefully. I am transferring my yellow into my bag with the bigger tip. I'm going to take this and I'm going to stick it inside. Okay, so that old bag is in there, but the old bag can't stay there. So I'm going to take my hand and I'm going to squeeze with this hand while I hold the tip of the first bag. And I'm going to squeeze this. It's going to be thick. I'm going to squeeze it all into the new bag so that I'm left with an empty first bag, and then all of the icing is now in this one with the tip. Okay? And I really want to make sure I'm getting all of that icing out, so I'm just going to do it another time, getting all that icing. So, let y'all do that. Comment again if you have any questions. If you're doing this live, comment and I will see it and try to answer them. But now that we have all of this in here, we really want to squeeze it down to that tip. Okay, and then I like to tie a knot. You don't have to, but you are going to tie a knot somewhere kind of above that icing. Doesn't have to be perfect. But yeah, just so that it doesn't spill out. So just tie a knot somewhere at the top. And then we're ready to use it. So the rose ones, we're gonna stick with one first because these crust over like a lot when they're exposed to oxygen. And so one of the things that I sometimes will do, like I don't think we'll really need to do it now, but if I'm using like multiple ones, what I'll do is I'll put like a little paper towel. I'll take a little piece and I'll dump it in water or put some water on it, and then I'll place it on top so that every time that I'm not using it, it's going to be moistened by this wet towel and it'll kind of keep it from crusting over. So if you want to do that, you totally can, but since we're going to deal with one at a time, I don't think it's totally necessary. Okay, so see how my tip no longer has a good seal? Again, take your finger and just pull that tip up so that you have a good little seal. All right, we're going to play with this before we do it on the cookie. So squeeze it, but don't squeeze too hard. So sometimes if you have a smaller opening and you really squeeze hard, it's going to bust the bag. So you really just want to be taking your time and be careful. Don't squeeze too hard. It's not going to come out super fast, okay? But if you try to kind of force it to come out fast, it will bust. And you do have one extra bag so that if it does bust, what you would do is take the extra bag, cut off about 1/2 inch, and then again do the process over again where you take this tip off, put it in, transfer this icing into this bag. If that happens to you, feel free to comment and be like, Jackie, hold up, I need you to show me how to do this. But for now, I'm going to assume we're all good. I have the same icings as you, so mine might bust as well. But for roses, you start in the middle, and then you spiral out. You can, spiral as many times as you want if you want like a real big, rose. But when we're doing this, what I did in the advertised one is every time you do a rose, you then take some of your sprinkles, which were in your kit, and you're going to like place them right in the middle if you want to. I'm not really sure, like every time I do roses I do this because somebody that I used to follow a long time ago, she used to do that, so I was like, oh, that looks good, just to give it a little extra, I don't know, dimension or something. But we're gonna just practice. Just do like 2 or 3 roses on your parchment paper. And to stop, sometimes it's a little hard to stop the rose. So sometimes what you might have to do is take your toothpick and sort of like press that end into it. So like sometimes starting and stopping is the hardest thing. But again, the same rule that you did on the worksheet applies to this. Every time you start and you stop, you want to kind of dip down to start, get a good touch, on that paper or that cookie, pull up, spiral around, and then when you end it, kind of touch it down or touch it towards that rose, the rest of the rose, and then you can use that toothpick to sort of get it in. All right, are we doing okay? Y'all good on the practice? Hopefully. All right, here's the fun part. So we want to have our roses going, obviously we have leaves, we've got 2 roses, but for right now, what I'm going to tell you is to just sort of place the yellow roses sort of wherever you want them to go. Like have some of them separated, some of them close. What's going to happen is we're going to kind of build upon it. So like, as you can see here, there's not 1 layer. I actually did 2 layers. And so I have some on the bottom, you can see, and then some are kind of like raised up. So that's sort of what we're doing. So we're not too concerned about making it look perfect because at the end, we're going to sort of like fill it in, if that makes sense. So there's 2 types of things you can do with this. One is the rose, which we'll do. The more you spiral, the bigger it is. But there's also like a star one. So there's one where you'll press and then pull up. So it looks sort of like a star if you can see that. I know it's not the clearest quality or really the biggest, but you'll have some that are roses, some that are stars. And so again, there's really no right or wrong way to do this. I'm just gonna kind of like place roses wherever. But just remember, it's the first layer, so it doesn't have to be perfect. If you want to follow along with me, you can. I will start over here on the right. Take your time. And then every time after you do a rose, take a couple sprinkles if you want to, and put them in the middle. Busted bag already. Oh no. Okay. So again, it happens to me all the time. So take your bag, your new bag, okay, and cut a little bit off. You can always cut off more, so go, you know, a little smaller than you think, but about that much off. Okay. You'll take your tip. You'll have to kind of like cut it out. I'm not gonna probably cut mine. Well, I guess I could because I have more bags here. So if you bust it, you'll cut this tip. Take the tip out. Again, place it in your new bag. Same thing as before. All right, and then again, transfer. Make sure that it's got a big opening. Transfer that bag into the new one. Busted bags with roses are definitely like the worst part. I think that happens a lot. Because if you want to get that thick icing, but sometimes it's just really hard to squeeze it out. And so I would also say make sure that that knot is kind of near the top so that you've got some room for that hand. And then take your time when you're doing it, take your time. Yes, I'm having trouble getting the roses to stay down. They're lifting up every time I spin or try and end. That happens to me as well. Again, when you're doing it on the cookie, if you mess up on a rose, take your toothpick and just wipe it. It's really thick icing, so it's all gonna come up at the same time. When you start and you stop, you wanna press down. So when I start, I wanna make sure, you know, I keep it down until it sticks. And then I lift up, and then when I end it, I have to kind of like push it into the rose and pull it out, and then again take my toothpick and kind of like press it in. Roses are not easy. They, you know, it's like the tip makes it easy, but it's like really not, because there are so many things that are involved with it, like the busted bag and all of that. But there are some tricks you can do. So like keep it down until it catches on the cookie. And then when you spiral, press it in, keep squeezing until you feel like it's sort of like staying on the rest of the icing or on the cookie, and then pull it out and use your toothpick if you need to kind of help it out. I think that's as many tricks as I can give you. I'm hoping that you don't have too many bags bust, that you have nothing, but there is something you can do in case you have all your bags bust. We can also do roses without the fancy tip. So if that happens to be you, then we can also do them without the tip. I will show you that as well. Okay, so I'm behind. If you are ahead of me, then like see how mine's not coming. So sometimes what I'll do is I will take that rose and I will move it, and I will literally just like stick it down a little bit, press it with my finger. Sometimes I do that as well. They are not easy. They look kind of like easy, but they're not. But again, the roses are pretty like manipulative. So like even the one that I had over here on my worksheet, or I mean my parchment paper, I can literally take that and just stick it on. The icing is very hard. It is supposed to be hard in order to keep the lines. But yes, you might do this and be like, I'm never doing that again. If you like, you know, sometimes like people that I follow, they will say a lot of times that roses will give them hand cramps because it's just kind of how it is. Like it is hard, and Sometimes you can make it a little bit thinner, but you just really want to be able to keep those lines looking good. And so the thinner it is, you know, you just don't get those lines. And so while it is definitely hard, that's why I just say be patient. Try not to squeeze too hard. The harder you squeeze, then it just is gonna bust it, to try to take your time. I might take some of these roses that I did on my parchment and scoop them up and put them, oops, on here. So these are the ones that I did earlier. But I'm going to press them down lightly to stay on the cookie. Okay. I knew this was gonna be a little bit harder. I'm not putting all of my yellow ones here because I also have my pink ones. So I think I'm going to do just that, and then I'll do the rest pink. So again, if it's having a hard time sticking, just squeeze until it sticks, and then you can use your finger to kind of press it down. Okay, so I'll do that many, and then I'll do my little... Ooh! Sorry, it's definitely blurry. Okay, so this is my first thing right here. Now I'm about to do... yeah, let's do our next one. Okay, so we haven't done this one yet. We haven't transferred it yet. But let's transfer our pink into this. What I will say, if you really had a hard time with, you know, that yellow one, you can use your less thick one and put that in this one. However, if you choose to do that, you'll need to first do your spiraling on this one. So I usually in a class would be like, raise your hand if you want to use the less thick one, but I can't do that, so I'll just show you this now. So again, if you're having really hard time with the yellow, then don't use the double line one for the next roses. Use the single line one, but you're going to need to first do the spiral on your rose. So I will do this first just to show y'all. Okay, so we're going to do spiral in to out. So we're going to go inside, and then you actually, as you start to get towards the outer part, we're going to spiral kind of in line with the cookie. So you're going to kind of go with the outline of the cookie. I know it's hard to see. I'll show y'all in a minute. And then once you get sort of to the outer part, we're going to sort of like re-outline. So once your spiral comes to the outside, then you're going to re-outline here. Okay. And again, I'm doing this one because I know that y'all are having a hard time with that thick icing. So if this is the one that you would like to use instead of the thicker pink icing, totally understandable. We just need to do these details first before we can transfer it into a new bag. All right, does that make sense? So I'm only doing that because if we do want to use this thick instead of the really thick, then we can do that. So then now you will do this one, transfer into this. So whatever you choose to do, we do want to put one of these thick pink icings into the new bag that has the tip. I am going to try the double thick one. All right, like I said, if you are down with no extra bags, I would advise doing the thick one and not the really thick one. Okay, so let's transfer this one. And if we still have our extra bag, if this one busts, then we'll use the thick one and try it out. Roses are just, you know, they're not my favorite. I will say that, because I feel like I'm always busting bags, or it's not the easiest, and it's interesting, you know, people don't tell you that till you take a class, and then you're like, oh boy, I didn't know it was that hard. So now we should have the pink, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna fill this vase with pink, and then we know that we're gonna add leaves as well. But for now, all of the parts that are that naked cookie, we're going to put our little stars and our roses of pink in that area. So again, if you have smaller tips, you might have to spiral around a little bit more, or you might have to add more roses. Okay. All right, and I'm going to just kind of take my time doing this. Y'all kind of went silent. Hopefully everybody's still okay. I had like a bunch of people commenting, and then it went quiet. The bigger the opening, the better. I already can tell that I'm about to bust a bag. So my guess is that that icing might have just been a little bit too thick. So I may end up using my other one. Yep, that's what I'm gonna do. So sorry, y'all. Like I said, not on my A game this week. All right, so I'm gonna actually transfer my thick one into a new bag as well. Y'all doing okay? I don't hear from anybody. I hope y'all are okay. Okay, so we want to fill this up, and then the next thing I'm going to show you are how to do the leaves. And then before we do the one with the like bouquet, I am going to show you a way that you can make roses without the tips, okay? Because you might feel really frustrated with this one in the vase, which is totally understandable. And then I will show you if you're like, I am not doing that on the next one. I will show you how you can do it without doing like the tips. All right, so here we go. I'm doing the one that has just the thick and not the really thick. It's still pretty thick, y'all. I might end up just doing my stars with the pink. See, I'm glad I'm doing this with y'all because I can see what you're going through. All right, so we're gonna opt out. We're gonna do stars if we can. Is anybody else having the same trouble on the pink? No, y'all are so quiet. I think it might be my tip, to be honest. Because I know that the icing is fine. Okay, so sad, but I'm gonna just do the yellow because for some reason the pink is not wanting to cooperate. So let's do the yellow. Okay, so we're going to I'm gonna just do the yellow. So what I wanna do is just go ahead and put yellow roses and stars. And I know I am going to fill it with the green leaves. So my guess is if you have a bigger opening, that's gonna be better. So use the whatever icing you have that has the bigger tip, we'll just use that. And a lot of times when you do have that bigger opening, it makes it easier to come out. Sometimes when you have like the small one, I don't know why, like usually I can do the small one and do roses just fine, but for some reason today it's just like not wanting to work, and I don't know if it's the icing or what, but we're gonna just make it work as is. Okay. So, oh, it's been a crazy, this cookie. I'm like, I'm done with this cookie. Move on to the next. Okay, so we should have like a single layer. We're gonna fill it in. There are some holes and stuff. We're going to fill it in with leaves, and then we're gonna do a little bit more on top to kind of give it some more dimension. We're not gonna like cover the whole layer, but we're gonna do some on top, fill those with leaves. And then we're going to try to do the other one, which of course we'll see how this is. What I may end up doing is just sending you, like, if whoever's having trouble, but you want to do this in the future, I may just send you some like bigger sized tips, just because I know that it can be frustrating. So if you're like, I did this class because I really want to do this, you know, in the future, I can send you another like big tip, and that usually is what, sometimes it's just because if it's a smaller tip like my pink one is, then it doesn't work as well. So whoever's having issues, reach out. If you do want me to send you a little, like another bigger one, I can do that. Okay, so wherever you're at, pause for a moment, and we're going to do our leaves. If I can find where I put it. Okay, so pause because I do have to show you the way to cut this. All right. So how you cut your green bag is going to affect how your leaves turn out. So it's very important for you to do this perfectly and symmetrically, which I know sounds really harsh, but if you do it right, then you'll get like beautiful leaves. If you don't cut it right, then you'll just be frustrated. So this is all in the way that you cut it. So what we want to do first is we want to look at our bag, and we want to make sure that the seam of the bag is facing you right down the middle. Okay, so there is a seam in your bag. Make sure it's facing you and is right down the middle, like perfectly in the middle. So we want to then take your tip and just kind of flatten it out. Okay, make sure it's nice and flat, and that icing is, you know, for the most part, pretty much like pushed back. Okay, seam down the middle, facing you. We are going to create we're going to cut 2 times diagonal. So it's going to go from the outside into the seam. So one cut will be from the outside to the seam, and you want to make sure it's not too big, because if you don't cut it right, that's fine. You can always make it bigger and get a better cut, but you always want to start small first, and then you cut from the other side to the seam, or from the seam to the other side, so that what you get is you get a pointed cut. Okay, you want both sides to be the same. From the outside to the seam should be pretty much the same angle, the same length of a cut. And so you just want to look at it and make sure it's as symmetrical as can be. Sometimes I literally am like this, looking at it and cutting it perfectly, so that the more symmetrical and perfect, then the better my leaves turn out. All right, seam right down the middle, symmetrical cuts. All right, so now when you hold it, you want that seam to be facing you. You're going to lay your wrist flat, and then we're going to squeeze it out. It's going to come out kind of watery since it's been traveling. So do a couple of times practicing, but you're going to squeeze it out. It's going to start to thicken. The first one might be watery. And then you'll go squeeze, squeeze, and the more you squeeze, the bigger it gets. And then pull out. Try to get that little point there if you can when you pull out. Practice a few of them. The longer you stay here and squeeze, the bigger it is. Also, you get those nice little kind of like ripples and ruffly looks if you sort of like come out and in, or even just like the longer that you stay. But you can ruffle them if you go pull out, push in, pull out, push in. Or you can stay there with it and just kind of like let it ripple itself, so to speak. It's all in the way you cut it. So if you're getting kind of like wonky looking leaves, I would again kind of, take a look at it, make sure you're cutting it, that it's perfect symmetrically. And then if you cut too small, you can always cut a little bit bigger if you need to. But again, smaller leaves are better, and then you can like stay there and squeeze more to make it like wider. Okay. So after you feel good practicing a few times, we're going to do it on our cookie. So wherever you think you kind of want these leaves to be, I mean, you don't want to like bombard it with leaves, but just some places that are emptier, like, oh, I want a leaf here and a leaf there. All right. So we're going to do leaves. Try to make it not so blurry. So I'm going to put some leaves in the middle, some leaves on the side, kind of just filling these spaces here. Okay, so we're going to squeeze and pull. It really doesn't matter where they are, to be honest. You can use them to kind of hide some mistakes here. All right. And not necessarily like, I'm not really doing this with sort of like a perfect way in mind of how I want it to look. Just sort of, the leaves will kind of make it look a little better. Remember, the longer you stay there and squeeze, the bigger the leaf will be. And then maybe one or two more. But I also want to do a few more on top to kind of give it a little bit more dimension here. So I know that some of these might get covered, which is fine. Okay. All right, how are we doing? Is at least like the yellow working out for y'all? Was it the pink that was hard? Makes me just want to send y'all like a whole new thing of pink ones. I'm so sorry. I had the same issue, so I don't really know. I don't know, because I very typically use this consistency for roses, so I don't know what's going on. All right. Let's do a few more on the top. Now, when I say we're going to do another layer, it's only going to be a few more, like on the top, just sort of creating a little bit of dimension so that it's not just like a single layer. And if you're happy with the way yours looks, you don't want to do this, that's totally fine. If you also, are running out of the yellow icing, you definitely, want to save it for the other one. That's good too. And then we can also do some stars. Stars. Those are a little easier. Yeah, and then I'm good with that. So I just did like 4 or 5 roses. And then I'm going to do a few more leaves for those ones on top. Okay, and we're almost done with this guy. We just have like a couple more finishing details and that's it. All right. The yellow is much better, yeah. I really don't know why, to be honest, because it is the same. I know it's the same consistency. So it could be that if you used the bigger tip, maybe that's what it is. I don't really know. All right. We want to grab, so we're almost done with him, but we want to grab our thick blue. So we're gonna redo the outline sort of on the vase, but not all the way around. So what I ended up doing was just the re-outline, kind of like, oh, not even the re-outline here. I'll show it to you. Just a little line right here. I forgot. I didn't do it completely. Just the line right on the bottom. You can do it like all the way if you want, but what I did, just going to give it this like glare kind of look, is I did about like that. Just a little bit extra dimension. And then for the name tag, we're going to do a little extra, like same thing that we did here. Right here on the left where the blue meets the white, we're going to redo that and then across. You can, if you want, re-outline the whole thing, but I just did down and across. And then we have one last thing, which is the little heart, and we are going to do that with our thin pink icing. Oh, 2 people said nailed it. Oh gosh. If y'all send me pictures, I'm very curious to see what they look like. Okay, so for the heart, we are doing this thin pink. Typically, I'll do like a thicker one, but I feel confident that we can do it with this. So we're going to do just a little bit, like don't squeeze hardly at all. And then use your toothpick to sort of like make it look like a more perfect heart, but sort of just like drop in just a little bit of icing. And then use your toothpick to make it more of a heart. All right. So your second cookie is done finally. Oh my gosh. And then so you have the butterfly and this one done. We almost have our rose done if you did that outline, you know, already. If not, then you have to do that part. We're going to do the little spiral thing, and then we'll do the leaf, and then that one is done. And then the last one we have to do is our vase one. And at least, no matter how they look, we know that they taste good. All right. Okay, so if you haven't already, you're going to want to do this little spiral here. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then the only thing we have left is the leaf on this one. So this one is a bigger leaf. So what we do in order to get a bigger leaf, we don't necessarily have to cut more. All we have to do is just sit here and squeeze like for longer. So maybe we want to cut more. We can also do like 2 leaves if we want. So yeah, that definitely probably could be a little bit bigger. So if I'm not happy with it, I'm gonna wipe it off. Comes off like really easily. And I am going to make it a little bit bigger because I want it to work for this, and I know that my other one will be fine if it's a little bit bigger as well. So again, I'm going to try to cut that symmetrical, you know, cut a little bit more, and then that way I get a bigger leaf. And if I really want to come back and give it a little bit more, I can do that too. And then I'm happy with that. And that one is done as well. So we got 3 down, 1 to go. Almost there. Okay, I'm going to show you how you can do roses without the tip. I mean, I'm cool with the yellow one, so I'm gonna definitely use that one. I'm gonna try the you know, this one again. At this point you might have yours kind of crusted over, so what I would say is go ahead and, you know, kind of clean off that tip a little bit, squeeze a little bit, try to get that, you know, the kind of the initial part off of it. And then whichever is the bigger tip will probably be the one that you use. So if you have your pink one is in a bigger tip, cool. Mine is just, my pink is just not gonna work. So if you happen to have an extra bag, I would go ahead and cut your pink thick one and then transfer that into the bag that does not have the cut. The bag that you have that's the extra, if you have that still, transfer this into it and cut a regular outline hole. You can also use your white. So I'm going to show you on the white. So we don't need the white anymore. So what we want to do is cut a little bit bigger. So if we had, like, this is going to be if you have white roses. So we have a bigger hole, and what we can do is create a drop of icing. And we want it to look like a Hershey's Kiss, like pretty high up, okay? I would most likely let that dry for a little bit longer, but just for, you know, being able to show you. Then what you would do is go spiral down that mountain of icing, spiral down as you kind of work your way outside, and kind of like, you're sort of like spiraling down a mountain of icing, like you're creating this road that's going around. That's an easy way to create your roses without having to deal with the tips. But again, if you at least have one that is good, we can use that one. And again, my apologies if it did create some frustration for you with it not coming out very well. So for this one kind of shows you where the leaves and the roses are. So like we have our rose, 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 so you can kind of see, it does show you where they are. So that kind of makes it all easy. So we can do our rose here. And then if it's not sticking, press it down with your finger and it'll get a good stick. Some little things in the middle. Okay. And then I'm bypassing where those leaves are. And again, anywhere that you sort of have openings, you can leave that for the leaves. Push it down, stay down. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, I'm gonna do, I'll do the outside ones first, so then I really kind of know what I have to do in the middle. Hopefully at least the yellow is working out for y'all. Okay, cool. And then now I know I'm going to do 2 more. And I know I can use my leaves to kind of fill the space a little bit more. If you do have a smaller tip, because that just happened to be the one that the yellow one was in, then you may have more, you know, roses than I have. It might be a bigger bouquet of like 2 dozen. But then everywhere that is an opening, we're going to do our leaf and just kind of fill those spaces there. And then of course the ones on the top do show you like it's, you know, that's where a leaf goes. So that's easy. And then the ones in the middle, you'll just kind of have to sort of create yourself. So anywhere where there's sort of like cookie showing, that's where I'm gonna put those leaves. I'm gonna do a double leaf up here. And the leaves are like my favorite thing. Like as long as you have the cut right, like the leaves are so much fun. And pretty easy, actually. Okay, and then I do have some, I'm gonna put like some leaves in the middle, so I'm not just going around the outside, but some in the middle. And sometimes like if you have like one leaf somewhere, it looks kind of weird. So sometimes I'll put like another leaf next to it and it looks better. Not really sure why, but all right, I think I'm happy with that. Yeah. You can, if you want, create some more. Like if you want another layer, you can do like another on top. I'm just gonna leave it like that, I think, because it looks about the same, minus the pink. So that is our last cookie. Again, I am so sorry about the pink. What I am going to do is, for everybody who's taking the class with the kit, I'm gonna go ahead and give you 20% off a future class. So everybody's gonna get 20% off, just as a way for me to be like, I'm so sorry, this is not typically what happens. Obviously, circumstances this week, my mind has not totally been there, so it definitely is my mistake that I probably made the icing too thick. So I will give everybody 25% off, and then those who got the door prize, you will get that 30% off as well. So hopefully that makes you feel a little better. I'm so sorry. It's not really typical. If this is your first class, you're like, what is going on? This is not typical, but hopefully you come back and have more fun with me. So we are done. We did our four cookies. I hope that you enjoy them. And, you know, if you want to eat them right now, awesome. If you want to let them dry overnight, you can keep them in the box overnight, and then if you do plan on saving them for longer than 3 days, I would put them in a Ziploc bag or like an airtight, you know, Tupperware or something like that, and they'll stay good for up to 3 weeks with that icing on in like a bag or something like that. So that is it for now. Thank you for bearing with me. I hope that you had fun and that you come back and see me, and I will send you the discount code via email, as well as the pre-recorded link once it's up if you ever want to come back and watch it. But other than that, that's it. So if you have any questions, message me, email me, whatever. I'm here. I'm happy to help. And I'm truly grateful for these virtual classes, because right now nobody is buying cookies because all events are canceled. So this is our only source of income right now, and we're truly grateful for everybody doing the virtual classes. So thank you, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!